Good morning. My name is Carol. I am facilitating or moderating this webinar for on behalf of SCORE Utah. I've been with SCORE myself about 12 years now and do lots of different things for the chapter. And so if you have any questions about SCORE in general, you can put them in the chat. I'm happy to answer them. We are as you can see on the screen, we are a nationwide nonprofit, and our mission is to provide free mentoring and free or low-cost education to anybody who is thinking about a business, who is already in business, or needs help exiting their business, pretty much running the gamut. Our tagline is "For the life of your business." We are here to answer quick questions as well as to develop further relationships. I could see you for multiple times or multiple years as needed. So with that, Jean, if you could move on to the next slide. Yeah, just a little bit about SCORE. Again, free mentoring, free or low-cost webinars and workshops. There's a lot of webinars and courses on demand on our website. Feel free to peruse those. I'm going to call out Gail. She is our chapter chair, and I'm going to ask Gail to say hello, as well as to talk very briefly about a great networking event that we delivered 2 weeks ago, I think it was. Morning, Gail.
Good morning. Good morning. I am happy to be here and to support Janine in this workshop, and I was very happy to attend a speed networking event held in Lehi, Utah at Silicon Slopes on May 13th. We had a wonderful group of people who made connections. We had small businesses, we had entrepreneurs looking to start a business, and we were able to pass out our cards and exchange ideas and contact information. It was an exhilarating event, and everybody seemed to really thoroughly enjoy it. So we are hoping to put on speed networking events once a quarter, and our next one will be in September 6th at Utah University. And that's the technical college there. And so we're anticipating about 100 attendees. So be sure to sign up as soon as possible to reserve a seat. And with that, I pass the baton back to you, Carol.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started with this presentation. I'm excited to hear what Janine has to say.
All right. Well, thank you, Carol. So we're going to talk today about employee engagement and how we can drive and impact and improve employee engagement in your organization. So I'm going to ask, so I should just introduce myself, I guess. I'm Janine Wilson. I am a SCORE mentor, as well as I also am a consultant. I own a company called Corporate Talent Advisors here in Utah, and do HR and employee engagement types of work. So I'm going to ask a question, and I'm going to allow you to just go ahead and use an open up your mic and talk to me, or if you don't have that ability, go ahead and put it in the Q&A. What is engagement? What is employee engagement? So I'm going to ask you to submit that information and tell me from your perspective, what does it look like when my employees are engaged? Anybody? Colleen?
What I see when our team is engaged is there is active listening, and the feedback is coming from their perspective, which causes great dialogue.
Okay. When you say great, is that a positive or a negative?
It could be either or, but there's at least feedback.
Yep. Yep, at least they're talking.
Right.
That's a good thing. Anyone else? Also, we've got a Matt and Lewis also on the line. What does engagement look like in your organization? Okay. Maybe we can't log on or can't use, so that's okay. I assume that most all of you are business owners, and how many, and that you have employees, and that you have a group of employees that you're either very happy with the engagement levels or you're looking to improve that a little bit. So the question is then, how do you know when employees are engaged? Now, Colleen says they talk, right? They engage with you. They talk, whether it's with you as a business owner or as a leader or with each other. And both of those are good. Both of those could be challenging. So from your perspective, and again, I'll ask you to put it, I'm going to have you use the Q&A because we're using the chat for networking, but use the Q&A just to, answer this question. How do you know, what kind of behaviors do you see of your employees when they are engaged or disengaged? You can indicate either one in the Q&A.
Janina, I don't know how to open that Q&A. It doesn't really have a dialogue box in it.
Oh, okay. Let's just go ahead and put it in the chat then. That's fine. Go ahead and put your answers in the chat. That's probably easier. Like we've got a couple of other folks coming in. So those of you who are just joining, we're just talking, I'm asking everyone to put in the chat what it looks like when your employees are engaged. How do you know that your employees are engaged? Or conversely, if they're disengaged, what are those telltale signs that tell you that?
They don't show up to meetings.
Right. They don't show up to meetings. And that can be in person or not in person, right? They may be there, but they're not really there.
True.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. The feedback is, it could be either negative or positive, right? You start hearing feedback, you start hearing things that people are saying. Body language is a huge sign. I agree, Lewis. Absolutely. Body language tells you an awful lot. Yep. Okay. All right. So let's talk about what is engagement. Let's see if we can identify what that is. So as business owners, as managers or leaders in an organization, there was a survey that said, okay, what are the top drivers of employee engagement? And so the survey said, tell us what employees are looking for when they are coming to your organization. So this is attraction. What are the top 7 drivers of employees attraction to your organization? What makes them say, I'm going to take this opportunity, this job over another one that I'm looking at? So what do you think would be the number one? You put it in the chat. The number one driver of employee attraction to your organization. This is before you've hired them. They're applying, they're talking to you. What is it, the number one thing that employees prioritize when it comes to being attracted to an organization? Throw it in the chat. Passion for the mission. Yep. Yep. People have got to believe in your mission, especially if you're a nonprofit. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anything else? Anyone else? Getting along with the team. Yeah. Do they gel, during the interview process and meet and greet? Are they saying, yeah, these are the kind of folks I want to work with? There's something about this group that really, really is kind of cool. I want to be part of it. Anything else?
Gail added salary and benefits.
Yep. Salary and benefits, definitely, definitely. Right. We gotta pay the bills. Gotta pay the bills. Okay. All right. Previous work experience that can be applied to the offered position, right? So that the skill set I have, can it be applied here? Can I grow that skill? Can I make a big impression or a big impact in the organization? So let's see what the survey actually said. So number one, career advancement and opportunity. So what does this job offer me, or this organization offer me in my career? Is this taking a step forward in my career? So again, this is before I've joined the organization. I'm looking at it and going, why would I want to join this organization? Career advancement's number one. Base pay and salary, right? We gotta pay the bills, as we said. Absolutely. Is it challenging? Is it going to give me something that I don't have now? Is it going to keep me busy, and am I going to learn? The organization's reputation as a good employer, and calling that sort of similar to what you talked about, mission, and is this an organization I want to be able to be proud to be at? The organization's mission, vision, and values, very, very clear. That ethics, values, that type of thing. Learning and development opportunities, growth, advancement. What kinds of opportunities am I going to see? What am I going to gain in my toolbox, if you will, by joining this organization? And of course, job security, which is interesting that that's at the bottom. The job security, that stability of the organization. Are they going to be able to, are they going to survive? So that's what employers said. Now, let's see what applicants, the candidates, actually said. Same survey, what are the top drivers of attraction to this organization? And the question is, will it be the same? Well, let's look. Okay, different. So number one for attraction to an organization is base pay and salary. First thing they think about is, can I pay my bills here? Although that's only number two here for the business owner or the leader. So we're close. We're close here on attraction. Job security, though, is number two. So that's interesting. Now that could be somewhat of the economy, wherever it is that you are. Some areas have a much stronger economy, and there's a lot more opportunity. But job security typically is number two. Career advancement is number three, right? So bosses thought it was number one, but it's actually number three for employees or for applicants. Learning and development opportunities is number four. We want to see what we can, again, grow our skills, get more experience, etc. Challenging work is down here at number five, close to number three. So it was number three up here. Number six is the organization's reputation as a good employer. Right? We're not going to go someplace that has a sketchy reputation, or somebody said, they're crazy. They, you work all kinds of hours, you're not appreciated. And then finally, my time off, my vacation and time off. So why is that there? We're seeing a lot more people focusing on flexibility, a lot more people focusing on work-life balance. And that is coming up higher and higher in employee satisfaction surveys, is how do I what amount of time am I going to have to pursue my own loves and my own interests and be away from work and able to focus on my family? So that's how we talked about attraction here. So retention is different than attraction, though, right? We can get them in the door, but we don't want them going right back out the back door again. So retention is the next piece that we want to think about. Same survey, employers first. So the top 7 drivers from the employer's standpoint. So again, we've got them in the door, we've attracted them, and how do we retain them? So our top 7 drivers, according to our leaders, is base pay. If I pay them enough, they'll stay. We all know you can never pay anybody nearly enough if it's a horrible environment. But base pay from leaders' perspective is number 1. Career advancement is number 2 for leaders. Now, relationship with the supervisor or manager is number 3. That's new. That's a new topic. But managers, or leaders, I should say that the relationship that you have with me as your leader is the number 3 driver for keeping you there. Managing or limiting work-related stress. That's a new one as well. So how, as a leader, can I help my team members, focus on the right things, manage their time, and limit their stress? Number 5 is learning and development opportunities. That was one of those attractions as well. Short-term incentives, bonuses, project deadline bonuses, those types of things. Short-term incentives were number 6, and number 7 was challenging work. Also from the previous one, short-term incentives is new though. So we have a lot of the same numbers or items here. So what does employees say? Base pay and salary for retention is number 1. I still got to pay my bills. Even if I love this job, I've still got to pay my bills. Carol, yeah, go ahead. You had your hand up.
Yeah, quick question. The short-term incentives, are those, do you feel that the survey's indicating those are only monetary? Or is it giving people short-term wins, a small project that they can do well on and feel like they've accomplished something and feel more engaged within the organization? Or is it just money?
I think it's both. And you're skipping ahead, Carol.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I guess if I had
no,
reviewed your slides ahead of time, I would have known that. I'm so sorry.
You're fine. You're fine. No, short-term incentives can be both. They can be monetary, they can be recognition, they can be opportunities to lead. There's lots of things that we can use as short-term incentives. Typically, people think of cash, think of some sort of cash, but it could also be time off. It may not be necessarily money too, but yeah, it's a variety of things. I think interesting here in the employee, from the employee's perspective, is the third most important was trust and confidence in senior leadership. Do I believe the ship is being steered correctly? Do I think that we're on the right path? Does it feel like we're a stable organization? We're going to continue to prosper. We're going to continue to be successful. They've got to have trust. Job security is dropping now to number 4 for retention. So it was way high with attraction, but with retention, it's more of it's middle of the pack, if you will. Length of commute. Number 5 is the length of commute. So again, that's a new one. But again, people are looking at flexibility and work-life balance, and being on the road for 90 minutes one way is just not working anymore in today's world. Right? Relationship with a supervisor or manager. Now, I want to note that trust and confidence in senior leadership and relationship with their supervisor or manager are closely aligned. This one is senior leadership. Is the ship being steered in the right direction at the top of the deck? Down below, where we're working with our supervisor and our manager, that relationship is important. But I have to trust and have confidence in my supervisor, but I also have to know that they trust and engage with me at the team level. And then managing and limiting work-related stress again. So it is something that people are looking for. Stress in our job. We need to be able to manage that. Okay. Anything that surprises you on this?
For me, managing stress on the job, how is that measured?
Well, I think it's typically measured with how stressed your employees feel and if they feel that they can get away from it at points, right? If you're a nurse, you're going to have high stress times.
Right.
Absolutely. But the question is it 9 straight hours of stress, or are they able to buffer it somewhat? Is there some way to buffer it? Is there a way for them to take a break and truly get away from it, as opposed to just go sit down, you'll be fine in a minute? That's not relieving them of the stress.
Correct.
So yeah, so it has to do with the ability of them the employee to get away from the stress, and allow it to and to know that they're relieved of it. Right? How many times have you been at lunch and somebody calls you, right? That something just blew up, right? If you can say to your employees, leave the building, or when you're on break, we will not disturb people on break or lunch. And it becomes part of your culture.
Okay.
Especially if you're in a stressful type of environment. You truly, truly want to say, when you're away, you're away. When you're at lunch, you're at lunch. We will not contact you. So it's it's not necessarily something that's a barrier of a wall getting away. It's their belief that I'm away from the stress.
Right.
And I have permission to be away from the stress.
Respecting the time that they are away, is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it could just be on the second floor in the break room. They're
Right,
not out of the building, but the culture here is that we will not contact her. We will figure out a way to fix it. Unless something's on fire, we'll figure out a way, or
right.
we'll address it when she comes back.
So the employee needs to see that in action.
And they need to believe it. They need to believe that that's truly what you're doing. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, Colleen, but that relationship with your supervisor and the trust and confidence in senior leadership,
Right.
that all rolls downhill. It all rolls down here.
Yeah.
Hill.
That's
And
what,
you can have the executive up there saying, you betcha, we're gonna relieve you of the stress during your break times. But if we still keep pinging that person and we're not actually demonstrating it, we're not doing it at all.
correct.
And employees know that.
Right.
Okay, so the next question is, if we're looking at what is attracting people to us, what's retaining people, and are they engaged now? The next question is, are they there just putting in their 8 hours, or are they really truly engaged in your organization, in the mission, in the work, in the team? So how many of them are engaged? Different survey, but this survey says that only about 40% of your employees are typically highly engaged. So they scored high on all elements of sustainable engagement, which we'll look at in just a second. 17% are detached. They feel supported or energized, but lack the sense of traditional engagement. Disengaged, employees with less favorable scores for all three aspects of sustainable engagement. We'll talk about what those are. And unsupported, employees who are unsupported are who could traditionally be engaged, but lack the enablement or the energy for sustainable engagement. There may be a lot of other things happening in their life. We can't engage 100% of our staff.
Right.
But we can try to identify those people and see if it's something that the organization is impacting, or is that personal. So we want to make sure that employees feel, remember that when you hire a new employee, employees are not hired and become disengaged or come into your organization disengaged. Typically your new hires are all excited, right? They're on the top of the world. They just got a new job. If your employees are entering the organization disengaged, that's a hiring problem.
Right.
You're hiring the wrong
Okay.
people,
Mhm.
right? But almost everybody starts the job engaged, excited, dedicated, excited to be doing a new job. What happens though is that when you have a disengagement problem, which is what I say here, you don't have an employee engagement problem, you have an employee disengagement problem typically, right? So they quickly become disengaged when leaders, and I want to point that word out, when the leaders, this isn't typically their coworkers, this is the leaders, say one thing and do another.
Other.
There goes that trust, right? Boss is saying one thing, but she's expecting something else. They don't invest time in the onboarding and the training. They kind of throw them into the fire, or they don't give them all the resources they need, or they don't give them the right training to be able to be efficient when they really hit the floor.
Right.
They say they want improvement, but are unwilling to try new approaches. Employees come and say, hey, we could change this process if we did it electronically or something. And that, well, no, this is the way we've always done it. This is the way we want to do it. This is the way it works the best. If they're unwilling to listen to employees, again, you've lost people's respect.
Mhm.
They reward or ignore toxic employees. I can tell you my history in the human resource world, this is the number one killer of employee engagement, is allowing toxic employees or toxic supervisors and managers to continue to behave the way they are. To not call them out, to not say, wait a minute, this is not okay with us, move them, terminate them, whatever. Why am I going to try if he gets to continue to act like that all the time? So number one thing that you'll see employees disengaging with is if you ignore bad behavior. And that bad behavior is maybe not just be employees, it could be your leaders. They don't listen. Leaders don't listen. That's a great way to disengage, have your employees disengage. They ask for feedback, but take no action, or they give excuses. Well, that's a great idea. 2 weeks later, nothing's happened, or, well, we couldn't do it because, Employees just need to understand. They don't need to be believed every time. Their ideas might work and they might not, but at least circle back to them and say, you know what, budgetarily, we can't pull that off right now, but I think it's a great idea. Let's hold on to it for a couple of months. That's okay. But just to take no action or to give excuses, people can see through that. They blame employees for feeling burned out or overlooked. It's not my problem. You're feeling overworked or burnt out. You gotta just go home and take a nice hot bath and come back and ready to hit it again tomorrow. No, that's blaming the employee. Asking for critical thought and then getting defensive, right? Well, what should we change, employees? What team? What do you think we ought to do? Well, those are great suggestions. Well, why in the world do you think that's going to work? There's no way we can afford that. You know that. When you ask for input and become defensive, you're sending a very different message than the first question, which is give us your input. And that we don't acknowledge contributions or efforts. We don't say, that was fantastic, Janine. We really appreciate you going a little above and beyond for that customer. Or I appreciate you staying late yesterday and making sure that inventory count got done correctly. I know that was your personal time and I really appreciate it. Okay. So remember that employees see and hear so much in your organization. They may not say it, they may not, but they see and they hear what you're saying, how employees are interacting, how leadership and employees are interacting, and they assume. We want them to understand, so we should make sure that we help them to understand, right? So we have to make sure that what they're seeing and hearing, we're couching that or we're putting a framework around as to why we're doing what we're doing. Employees will gossip, or I'll just say they discuss. Please make sure that you clarify and communicate when you hear that stuff coming up, and you hear that, right? You hear it bubble up through the ranks, but somebody will come and say, you're never going to believe what Janine just was saying. She thinks that we're going to, lay off, that whole department. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Let me sit down and clarify. Let me bring the team together and let's talk about that, because that's not entirely correct. We are having some budgetary struggles, but I'm going to talk about that in this afternoon's team meeting. I think it's important for us to do that. And employees really do want to contribute. I really believe that they do. I really believe everybody has an interest in coming forward and talking to you as a leader, and allow them and engage with them and encourage them to come to you with these types of, or with questions or improvements or suggestions. So what difference does this make when you're highly engaged or you're not? Look at some of these differences. So this is a proportion of highly engaged employees experiencing this. Proportion of lower no engagement employees experiencing this. So the first one is someone has talked to them about their progress. If nobody talks to the employee about what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, what their next steps are in their career, 13% of employees, that incredibly low engagement. But if we talk regularly to our employees about their career, about their next steps, about the next training opportunities that we want to give them, 92% of them are going to be engaged.
Oh, that's pretty
92%.
good. Wow.
Right. And I want to go back to some of those fundamental things. People want to be valued. They want to hear what's going on. They want you to be genuine in with your concern about their career. And employees can tell when you're genuine or not. Look at this one. 10% engaged employees. But if someone encourages their development and says, you may want to think about going and taking this course over at the community college, or you may want to, why don't you put together a plan for a different schedule rotation with the team, since we've got some struggles there. If you'll do that for me and bring it to me, I'd appreciate it. 97% of them are going to be engaged in that.
Amazing.
It is really significant. Look at this, 19% just for asking their opinions, and their opinions count at work. Right? So it's not hard to engage employees, but sometimes I know us as leaders, we sometimes forget that it's a simple effort to engage employees, and it makes such a significant difference. And so how do we do that? Is your management team or your leadership team doing this? Are you encouraging them to talk with their employees regularly? And how do you do it? How often do you do it? We'll talk a little bit about that ways we can help make this easy. It really is not hard to do. So when you have an engaged group of employees, they perform better, they're more productive, they impact your profitability because they try harder. They make sure it's done right. They double check their work. They put it out faster because they're comfortable with what they're doing. Think about what it is that you as an organization, your DNA, your culture is asking of employees. And if they perform better and more productive and impact profitability, can you imagine the impact they're having on the organization overall? You have improved recruitment, retention, reputation, pride, future sustainability of employees, because your employees will bring new employees in, or they will talk to their friends around the baseball game that their kids are at. I love what I'm doing. It's a fantastic organization. I'm having so much fun there. I am learning a ton right now. My boss is fantastic. That is that's the best way you can advertise your company, is have your employees talking about it. So think about what your DNA is as an organization and what you're rewarding and the behaviors that you're rewarding. Employees will always be healthier, less stressed, they'll miss less work. Disengaged employees are not as healthy, they're not there, and they're not working, they're stressed out. So think about their health and well-being, and they'll be happier, more conscientious with their work, etc. That boosting employee job satisfaction and better customer experiences. When your customers are asking, being challenging, your best employees are dealing with them really, really easily, right? Because they're happy too. Your employees' happiness translates to your customers or your clients or your folks that you're working with. Employees are happier in their roles and more aligned with the organization's values. I found that when an organization has really strong fundamental values and they live them, and managers expect that, and managers are held to it too, employees know that and they value that tremendously. So I will underscore this with, it's the leaders that make the difference. It's not the employees. It's all about the leadership.
Yeah.
So when we talk about how do I get my employees to be more engaged, you need to look inward. First and foremost, you got to look inside. What am I doing as a leader? And what are my team? So whether I'm the owner, I'm a manager, I'm a supervisor, I'm just a team lead, all of those people impact employee engagement because they're all leaders, whether they're formal or informal.
Yeah.
And the informal ones too. Informal ones are very impactful, right? And the bad ones can make a huge negative impact. So leaders will always reinforce and model the organization's mission, vision, and values. You know, if they ever have a conundrum, your leader should step back and say, what is the right thing to do? What is it that our organization stands for? What does our mission, vision, and values tell us about how we address this situation? Whether it's with a customer or a client or whatever it is, your leader should be able to do that. If they can't, then they're not modeling those mission, vision, and values. Leaders provide training, equipment, and guidance to do the job. They should know the jobs as well. They will never know the jobs as well as the person doing it, but they should know it very, very well and be able to guide, provide training, or pull over the subject matter expert and say, Janine needs a little bit more help. Can you sit with her for a couple of days and just monitor her and make sure that she's got all the secrets that you have as well? Yeah. Leaders connect individual roles to the core values and to the organizational success. So even though your work on the production line, sometimes you feel like you're sort of a cog in the wheel sometimes. But remember that every time we create and you create a product that is high quality and we know we can stand behind as an organization, our core values is that we have is quality. You're a big part of that. I can't control that because I'm a manager and I don't do that work, but you do. And I want you to understand that every time you pass a product through quality inspection, you're ensuring that our customers get what they're paid for, or you keep them safe, or whatever it is. Reinforce that message. Leaders can do that every single day, even in impromptu coaching sessions. Leaders will care about their well-being, their input, their professional growth. Now, if you have If you have a restaurant, you're not going to necessarily keep your cooks or your servers for 20 years, right?
Probably
Right.
not.
But while they're there, they're going to have a great experience. You're going to teach them a lot. And it could just be managing multiple priorities, right? If you're a server and you've got 5 tables you're trying to deal with, how can you coach that server to do better at his or her job every single day? Listen to their input. You know, boss, if we just change the the cook, you know, the chef's line, it would come out so much easier. I wouldn't be having to go back and forth one into the other.
Mhm.
Oh, I never thought about that. That's a great idea. Let's go and talk to the chef about it. And their professional growth. You know, I know that you're a server. I know you're in college. You're going to get your electrical engineering degree. That's fantastic. You know, what is it that I can help you with? When's your finals? Let's make sure that we schedule you off so you can have a couple of days to schedule your finals. Think about that when you talk to your employees, regardless of what they're doing. And leaders provide feedback, guidance to help employees understand their role and impact they are making on the organization's success. Again, reiterate, underline, every time you do that right, it helps the next person down the line. Every time you get a customer call, I know I can count on you, and I really appreciate that. That is huge for employees. That is huge. Just that 2-minute conversation, just to say that I just listened to that call that you just had with the customer. That was fantastic. You did a great job. You did a great job. So those little things, employees remember them. And I think if every one of us in our career can think back to a time when we got feedback from a leader,
Yeah.
that made us go, wow, that is so cool. You run home, you tell your mom, you know, when you're 18 years old, or your spouse or something. And we remember when we get not so great input.
Right.
And it made us feel like I don't know what to do now. I had,
Mhm.
and I'll relate this. I was a youngster. I was probably in my middle 20s or something, and my boss came to me. I was in HR, and she said, "I need to talk to you." Um, Paul came and talked to me and said that he was a little upset about something, and I said, "Okay, what?" And she said, "Well, I can't really tell you what it was, but he just be careful when you work with Paul. You know, you need to be very clear with him." And I'm like, "So, but what did I do?"
Mhm.
I can't really say. But you know, and I saw Paul all the time passing in the hall. I didn't work with him a lot, but I passed him in the hall a lot. And it baffled me for years. She never could give me clear feedback as to what I needed to change. And I remember when she retired, I went to dinner with her a couple of years after she retired, and I said, I've got to ask you this. What did I do to Paul? And she looked at me and she said, I have no idea what you're talking about. I mean, it was
What?
20 years, but it stayed with me for 20 years because I thought,
Wow.
what did I do? But she couldn't give me that feedback and it wasn't helpful. But I've also had leaders that have told me very clearly, this is something that I got feedback on. I need you to make sure that you don't do that any longer in the future, or ask you to be more cognizant of some of those interactions you have with X or what. That helps me so much. It's feedback, and sometimes it's not good feedback. I don't want to hear it, but it's really very, very powerful for employees to
Right.
help them with their professional growth. So, what are some of the 5 drivers of engagement? Think about these things. So, the first one I'd say is flexibility. Always remember these are human beings. They're not cogs in the wheel. They cannot run on empty. And sometimes when I say run on empty, some of that is just, you're doing a fantastic job, Janine. Keep it up. I got some really good feedback for you yesterday. Thank you so much. I got to run. I just want to let you know that takes 5 seconds, right? So
Right.
flexibility with their time management, making sure that you ensure that they have the time to do the work that you're expecting them to do. And can they choose projects? Is there things that they can come to you and say, hey, I'd really like to be on that committee, or I process accounting paperwork. Can I do that from 9 to 6 just so I can get my kids to school? Would that be okay? Or I have a class at 5 o'clock. Could I do it from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. so that I
Mm.
can get to school on time? That's all it is. Just flexibility with time management. Think about that. Support them. Let them know you support them. right? Enable them to make decisions, enable them to understand what the parameters are, where their authority ends, but what decisions they can make without you. Okay, so you support them. Organizational support, trust, autonomy, how you do your work, how you want to get that out every day. Here's what you can do. Here's what we need you to, here's the guidelines we need you to follow. Here's the ones you can play with, whatever works for you. Um, Employee empowerment, thinking about it's not necessarily any longer where we work, it's the work we do. So many people now are virtual. So many organizations have gone virtual, and 4 years ago, people were saying there's no way that could happen. Well, it did, and now here we are. And it's an expectation that we don't always have to be face to face. So think about time and place, where the work gets done, how it gets done, perhaps. I have a friend that's an attorney, and she does her work at 3 a.m. when her kids were
Wow.
growing up. I know. I'm unconscious at 3 a.m., but for her that. And so she worked at home, and she was their law firm was fairly early in adapting to that. And she did her work from 3:30 to 6:30. When her kids got up, she got them off to school, and then she worked during the day, and then at 3 o'clock she was gone because the kids were home now. So she played around with that a little bit, and the law firm was fairly flexible with her. She's now a full partner, and just an amazing woman. But she was telling that story in a class I was teaching the other night, and I'm like, "You did, like 10 years ago?" She says, "Yeah, I did." And I said, "This is what I do. I'm really good at it, but this is when I'm doing it." And she used to put all of her emails as a delay send, so that it looked
Oh,
like she was sending them at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. And she
oh,
said, "Screw that! I'm not doing that anymore." You know.
wow.
I am who I am. It's coming in the middle of the night to you. When you respond is fine. So she had that confidence to say, "This is what I need to do, and this is the skill set I have, and this is when I do it best." So
Mhm.
think about when an employee comes to you and says, "Can this work? Can I do this? Is it will it work for our company and our clients and our, the other team members? And if it can, why not? Be open to it. You never know. They'll come up with some really creative stuff. I've had some people come up with really creative stuff. Don't
Can I
count
ask a
time in the
question?
office. Yeah.
So as a manager, if an employee comes to you with a scenario like that, that would work better for them, but you have not been exposed to that idea before, nor experienced, how should that be handled?
I think what I have done is I've said, okay, that's interesting. I had never thought of that. I want you to take the next 24 hours and I want you to write down some pros and cons. Tell
Mm.
me how this is going to work, kind of sketch it out for me, and then list pros and cons. And I want pros and cons for you and the organization or your team members, whoever they're affecting, right? Customers. And have them think that through. You haven't closed the door,
Okay,
but you also don't know what you don't know.
exactly.
And so, allow them to have that, empower them
Okay,
to think through. Because the next time they have a question for you like that, they're gonna come with the pros and cons already, right? Because you've
right.
trained them. This is what I need. I need to see it and I want to talk it through, but I want you to think about everything you possibly can. And I'm going to make some notes too,
Hmm.
but let's plan some time tomorrow afternoon, put it on my calendar, and I want pros and cons for you, your colleagues, me, the customer, whoever else that they interact with.
That's
And if you have more pros than you have cons, give it a shot. And Colleen, when you do that, when you have that conversation, you empower them
right.
and you send a message to the rest of your team that there's options, and
Mm.
I'm open to having those conversations. Now there are going to be times you're going to turn them down and say, you know what, the customer lines are open until 5 p.m. So and maybe I had people that would split shifts with each other,
Oh,
right?
that's a great solution.
Yeah, right. One comes in early, one comes in later. I'm fine. I want to work till 6 o'clock to avoid the rush of traffic going home. Yeah, I'll
Right.
work till 6 or 7. You know, you work early, I'll work late,
That's
something like
teamwork.
that. So job sharing, you know, I got to go part-time because I got family issues. I'm gonna have to quit. No, let's see if we can job share you with somebody and
Mhm.
hire another part-time person and have one full-time body doing the work. So think of, you know, give them the option to think through all the options and bring them to you. You might be surprised what they come up with. I always have
Excellent.
been surprised. Yeah. You know, things like also, I can't work in this open cubicle area. It's so noisy, I can't concentrate. I'm always getting interrupted. You know, that person's eating something that stinks funny, and this person, you know, I can hear their music going, or they're always on the phone with their kid arguing. Okay, well, can we move them to another part of the building? Let's not lose them. Let's not lose that skill set.
Mhm.
Obviously, you should deal with problem people in the group, but think about shifting people, you know, time, environments, locations, projects, that kind of thing.
Mhm. It's good.
And I'd also encourage you not to measure just computer keystrokes or time in the office. Measure what your deliverables really are,
Mm.
right? Outcomes, goals being met, job performance levels, that kind of thing. Think about
Mhm.
that. Ask that and put that on their lap as well to say, how is this going to impact our goals
Yeah.
for the week, right? If you go part-time or if you work in the evening. So, all right. So flexibility, number one. Number two, empathy. One thing that I found, especially, and I think it was really accentuated during pandemic, was an employer's ability to be empathetic to what's going on in somebody's personal life. Looking at burnout and, you know, during COVID, safety, right? I don't feel like safe to come to the office right now.
Yeah.
I'm worried about that. And that was really challenging for us. And I would encourage people to think about going beyond understanding, but understanding what their experiences are, you know, what their priorities are in their life, taking care of making sure you're taking care of them, and both emotionally and physically. Um, it's what's interesting is that when you express empathy as a leader, you're sending a very powerful message that you care. Doesn't have to be sappy. It doesn't have to be emotional. It's just like, I care about you. I want to make sure that you're okay. What can we do to, ensure that you're successful here at work? Now, it may mean that you have to find someone else to help support them emotionally or whatever. I don't know if any of you have EAPs, employee assistance programs.
Mhm.
Best investment you'll ever make. It's very inexpensive, and it's 24 hours a day, resources for mental health on the phone for them, for their spouse or partner, and all their children. I can't tell you the number of times employees have come to me and said, I don't know what to do. I may have to quit. I've got two autistic children this guy had. They were failing in school. I don't know what to do. And I've tried everything. I said, hold on, you're not going to quit. I want you to take some time to look into some resources. Here's some resources. EAP can help you with that. And that EAP person connected him with some testing. They finally got some really truth testing on their sons. Found out that one of them was a genius. It
Oh,
wasn't that
wow.
he hated school. He
Mhm.
didn't hate school. He never went to school. He never did anything. So he's failing. No, the testing people said, no, he's a freaking genius. And you need to jump him about 2 grades and encourage them
Wow.
to get some private tutoring. And the kid just took off. Just
Wow.
took off. So you can't deliver that. You as a leader can't deliver that. That's not your bailiwick. That's not your skill set. That's not your expertise. So find a way to be empathetic. I understand that I hear that it's really tough for you and your family right now. Here's some resources for you. Or, my partner just passed away. Okay. Not a under the bereavement plan or anything like that. Okay, I understand. Why don't you just take some time? We'll figure it out when you get back. Right now, you take care of yourself.
Mhm.
Message is incredibly powerful to employees
Mhm.
that you care, right? The
Mhm.
whole company is not going to fall apart because they're not there for a week. We'll survive. You go take care of you, right? Mom's sick. You take care of you. Get in the car, you go, you drive, and we'll take care of it. We'll call you if the ceiling drops in and we need you, but otherwise you take time and get back to me. We'll figure out that stuff when you get back. Now, that's not always easy to do, because then you're going to have somebody a year later saying, well, you let her go for 2 weeks without you. Okay, but let's talk about the seriousness of the issues too. You've got to make some leadership decisions, of course. But I will tell you that when you see people expressing empathy, especially leaders in the organization, that sends a huge message to staff, and it sends a message about your organization, about what your company stands for. And you want that. You want employees to feel like they can come and say, I need some help. Because if they don't, it's going to happen outside of, it's going to happen at work. Things are going to crumble at work. Or they're going to walk off and say, I can't do this anymore. And you have no idea why. You don't want that. So train your leaders to listen, to understand when a unique situation occurs, and perhaps come to you if you're the owner or something, and you say, you know what, I get it. It's not in the policy manual, but we're gonna, we're not gonna hold this against them. We had an employee whose husband was in Southeast Asia. He worked for the government, and he had this assignment for 2 years, and she was planning to fly over every 6 months and see him and stuff, and he was gonna, it was gonna be fantastic on his resume, and boost his retirement plan and everything with the government. And she got a call one day, and he had just passed out. And he was healthy. He was ex-Marine, and they rushed him to the hospital, found out he is full of cancer.
Oh.
And he had been having a lot of problems with the food, and he just thought it was the spiciness of the food, and the way that it was prepared. I think he was in Thailand or somewhere. And he thought he just couldn't ever adjust to the food. Well, no, he had severe cancer, and what they called her, and they said, he is on an airlift right now. He is on his way. We're airlifting him to Seattle, and then he'll be coming to Utah. So they'll immediately transfer him to another military aircraft. It will land in Salt Lake, and we'll take him directly to the Huntsman Cancer Institute, which is the premier institute here in Utah. He will land in Seattle at this hour. We have flights scheduled for you later this afternoon to Seattle if you want a meeting. I mean, that was the call she got. And that's how severely ill he was. So she came, and she's like, I don't know what to do. And we're like, go. Just put your stuff down and go. And we'll address this when you get back. When you are ready, you call us. Those are really, really impactful times. Sometimes it's just, my kid fell at school and I got her go. Okay. It may not be the same as husband has cancer, but those kinds of messages that you send say that you care. And remember, trust in the leadership is a #1 driver of engagement. All right. How about this one, number 3? Remembering the essential 80%. And I'm going to let you kind of guess here what the essential 80% is. These are your unskilled workers, manual labor, retail, healthcare. These are folks that have limited technology responsibilities. They lack autonomy, sometimes lack a voice in their job because it's very routine. It's very it's not sometimes unappreciated. They may be looked at as disposable, right? You exchange one for the other when they leave. And this leaves them feeling invisible. It leaves them feeling unseen, unappreciated, and expendable, if you will. It's interesting that over 90% of all large global company employees are these workers, are the essential 80%. Yet only 8% of them plan to invest in their frontline employee experience. 8% of companies. So, and I've worked in call centers. I've worked in healthcare. And I will tell you that these are some of the most amazing people in the whole wide world. I just love my frontline workers. And I've had frontline workers that are there for 10 years. So what makes them stay for 10 years in that job? Because they love their job. They love their people. They love the organization. They love the culture, all based on leadership. right? And the best leaders you have, if you have staff that are leading these teams, are those that connect with them. Many times come up through the ranks, right? But connect with those people and make them feel appreciated in any way. When I worked in a hotel, we had a challenge because our housekeepers didn't speak English. Most of them didn't speak much English. And so the hotel manager said, what can we do? We've got to have them be able to communicate with our guests, right? If they ask for something. And so we went to the local community college. We asked them, they came on site one day a week, maybe it was 2 days a week at 3:30 because they got off at 3. And we did ESL classes for free.
Wow.
And we just said, we'll pay for it. It wasn't money. It wasn't a lot of money. It was a big hotel. It wasn't a lot of money in their budget. But we had, I think, 15 housekeepers that first round, and it was bigger the second round. But great, we're teaching them English. Are they going to use it every day? Not necessarily, but are they going to use it every day of their life? Absolutely. Absolutely. We invested in them. So think about, can you give them those types of opportunities? Can you give them flexibility, decision-making in some of their responsibilities, any kind of autonomy over how they do the job, when they do the job? Look for a feedback. If they're working on the line in the restaurant, ask them if it's working for them. Is there something they would change? Have a team meeting once a week or once every 2 weeks and say, what feedback do you have for us? What can we be doing differently? Give them an award when they come up with some kind of improvement. Recognize them publicly in front of your customers or in front of each other at your team meetings. Tell stories about their accomplishments. We had, Bob, processed 15,000 dishes last year alone. Yeah, yay. Give them some sort of recognition so they know that they're making an impact. They know that they feel that you value what they're doing. And personally, just say thank you as much as you can. I had a leader, a CEO. We're a medical device company, but we had a fairly large manufacturing group, about 80 employees. And about once a week, it was random whenever he had the time, but he always made time to walk the line and say thank you. And it was interesting. Occasionally he'd reach out to shake their hands and they go, oh, I can't touch you. It's because it was contamination. He couldn't touch it. And they knew it, but he kept forgetting. And I remember laughing one time because he's like, oh, geez, I'm so sorry. I keep forgetting. And they're like, oh, no, you cannot touch me. Cannot touch me. So they were teaching him. And he was informal enough to laugh at it and say, you're right. You are the boss here. You're the boss on this floor. And he went out every week to say thank you. And so think about, again, that essential 80%, never forget them, because everybody's got someone on their team that's probably in the essential 80%. And then number 4, I'd say provide skill building. The fastest growing roles today are going to be driven by technology, digitalization, and sustainability. If you can, find ways to get your employees into basic computer classes, even if they're on the front line. Because they're going to need that. At some point, their job's going to become automated. So how do we help them transition into those new roles? Give them the education. 44% of current jobs are going to be disrupted in the next 5 years. That means 44% of your roles, not somebody else's, but everybody's. Over half, 6 in 10 workers will require new training. So start thinking about that. Who is your best, your brightest, your driven one? Throw them into a class and let them do the training. Okay? Only half of the workers have access to the right training opportunities right now. Help them. This is going to help you fill gaps as they open up. It's going to help you get ahead of some of these emerging trends or technologies that are going to be coming into your industry. And it shows employees that are valued. It shows employees that you're not disposable. If your job changes, we want to make sure that you have a good skill set to be ready for that. And this is a very old story, but it's when computers first started being desktop. I was in a company, well, it was Federal Reserve Bank. You want structure and process. We always did it exactly the same way. But they had an area that was all manual. It was securities. Banks and individuals could buy and sell securities. And they came up to the window, they stamped them, they put them in the ledger book, et cetera, et cetera. Companies who were buying securities would do it also on paper. Everything was on paper. Savings bonds was all paper, right? So they came along and they said, we were this part of the San Francisco Federal Reserve, and they said, everything's going digital. We're automating all of this work. So those folks in that team, which was about 15 to 20 people, all had to learn computers. And they basically started saying, no, don't want to do it. Okay, well, you've got to because your job is changing. We had two gentlemen who said, no, I will not do it. This is what I've done. I've always done it this way. 30 years, I've always done it this way. So I was in charge, I was this young HR person again, of establishing a training lab. So I bought computers and I literally taught a course of, this is a mouse. This is your keyboard. Click on the X in the corner. I mean, but we got everybody up. We gave them 2 years. 2 years to build the skill and be ready for the full conversion in the end of the 2 years. And these gentlemen held out and said, no, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. And so they missed the classes. Job was now changing and ending. And we said, you've been here 30 years. Are you gonna change or not? So one of them decided to go to an outside computer class finally. And he came back and he caught me in the lobby and he said, you're never gonna believe all the stuff that a computer can do. I'm like, I think I do. But I appreciate her now saying, I can't believe how much a computer can do. But it was really interesting that they pushed back on that so much because it had always been the way they had done it. Keep in mind, those people are still in our workforce, right? There's still people that are struggling with that. But when you give them the tools and you show them the way and you show them the new opportunities that are in front of them, we can help them see the future and help prepare them and say to them, I'm preparing you for what's coming next with the organization. We know we're going to be upgrading these systems. I need you to go to this class. Right. I'd also encourage you to think about other types of skills that you might be able to give them. Things like, teaching about what's going on in the rest of the organization. We used to have brown bags, and we'd have marketing come in and talk to the line staff and say, this is what we're doing. This is how we're bringing in customers. Sales, obviously HR, we always did training for people. We did lunch and learns about clients. Or about new products that were being introduced. Think about leadership roundtables, lunch with an executive, bring in 10 people, cater lunch, and just listen to them and talk to them and say, what is it you need? What kinds of things can we be doing? There is a program, and this is in Utah, but in Arizona may have something similar called Custom Fit through the local community colleges. They will pay for half of the training bill if you use an outside source. So I've taught custom fit classes. So custom fit at the community college will call me and say, we have a client, they want training on, I did it on unconscious bias in recruiting. And they say, can you do that class? I said, sure. So I teach the class and the employer paid me half and custom fit paid half of it. So the employer only paid half. That's a government program to help small employers train their employees. They'll pay half the cost. Okay, whether it's through the community college, in Utah, it's managed through each of the community colleges, but it may be different in other states. But there are dollars out there to help you, especially if you're a small employer, or if you're a nonprofit or anything like that, to help train your employees. And there's always dollars out there. There's obviously LinkedIn Learning, there's podcasts, there's all kinds of things that you can provide to your employees, access to your employees, so that they can continue to grow their skills. And then the number 5, the last one is nimble, what I call nimble resilience, or what this author called nimble resilience that I found. And it helps people to push through and avoid the burnout, to understand hardships, persevere, adapt to them, figure out how we're going to deal with them and do it together. And this, again, for you as a leader, sends a message that we understand we're slammed. I understand that. Let's figure out how we can fix this. So the first one is adaptability, where we anticipate changes or challenges coming down the road and adjust or innovate to meet those. You can bring an employee group together and say, okay, we're going to have to start working 2 shifts. We've got a lot of business. That's good news. The bad news is we've got to have somebody staff those. Let's talk about that. How can we do that? So help them understand that. Proactivity, continually evolving, seeking new ways of doing the work, not just reacting. Ask your employees, what can we be doing in order to meet this new challenge that's coming down the road? Sit down and talk with them. They do the work, they know it best. And then persevering, seeing setbacks as opportunities to learn, to grow rather than a crisis. So a nimbly resilient organization can be quick to implement innovations and changes. My leader isn't intimidated by these challenges, and we're going to do it together. I'm always looking for new ways to accomplish tasks. My leader has a plan for how we can grow and meet our demands. And the job roles in our organization are changing and evolving. So think about that as challenges come along. Your best weapon is talking. We've got something happening. Maybe it's even something negative. We've lost funding. We've lost a major customer. Sit down and talk. Share that information with your staff. Let them know what's going on, what the changes are coming. And then ask, how do we adapt to this? What suggestions do you have for us to get through this? What can we do now to be ready for that change in the next couple of months? Rethink. I want you to think about how we can do our jobs differently. I'm open to suggestions. And when you have somebody that comes through with a really fantastic idea or an adaptation, recognize and reward them. Say, you know what? If it wasn't for Susie over here, we'd probably be doing it the other way. But she's created a really snazzy little database that helps us to move that information forward faster. I want to thank her, and here's a $50 gift card, something. So help people to understand when to come forward and bring you those types of ideas. So those were kind of a very quick overview of how proactively we can start to think about engaging employees and utilizing them as part of our weapons, if you will, in our quiver. So the single biggest variable in employee engagement is you. It's the leader. Stop asking the employees to be engaged. Start engaging with them. Right, it's you. It's and all of your leadership team again, and not just an owner or a manager. It's the supervisors, it's the leads, it's the team captain, whatever your titles are. But you want to communicate, trust your employees, be loyal, and connect with them. So those 4 pieces of advice that I would maybe say. First one is paint the picture. Help them understand your vision. And make sure that it's realistic. Look at your goals, your quality numbers, your throughput, your sales numbers. Is it realistic? I work for a startup organization where, unfortunately, the CEO was very unrealistic, and he just was killing people. He's burning them out, pushing, whether it was in manufacturing or it was in sales or wherever it was. He was just such a driver, and he couldn't figure out why he had a lot of turnover, right? Because he wasn't helping them see whatever vision it was he had. He just kept pushing numbers. Take the unknown out of your relationships. Be honest. Be open. You know what? We're in some hard times right now. I need some thoughts from all of you as to how we can go through this. Or you know what? We are growing like crazy, and we need to put our arms around this. Let's talk about that. Engage employees in building their own career roadmap. Where do you want to be? What do you want to do in next year and the year after and the year after? And how can I help? Is there, do you have some tuition reimbursement programs you can help them? And tuition reimbursement is great because it locks them in for a couple of years with you, even if they're getting a degree that has nothing to do with your organization. Or ask them, what do you want to learn? I'd really love to learn quality. Okay, so you're in manufacturing line right now. So if you're on the manufacturing line and you want to learn and do quality, let's talk about getting you certified. Let's talk about you shadowing the quality team maybe 1 day a week, et cetera, et cetera. So what do you want to learn? Ask them what's interesting for them. And create and enable those off or on the job learning experiences. They can be on the job. They can be very simple sometimes. And it may just be that they want to learn more about what goes on in another department so they can better service that other department. Number 2, communicate with trust and respect. People know when you're being respectful. People know in their gut that they can trust you. And that happens when you trust them. It's a two-way street. Trust employees to do their job. Until they do it wrong, trust them to do it, right? Don't take off the heavy hands and let them do their job. Empower them to do what's best in the best interest of the organization or the customers. And communicate both the good and the bad news. They make an error, you talk to them individually. When you want to recognize and give them kudos, you do it in public, right? So criticize in private, kudos in public. Think about what's your employee experience strategy. What do you want to recognize? What is important to you? What is important to the organization? So communicate both good and bad. Speak as well as listen. Boy, that's probably a basic, right? Shut up and listen for a bit and hear what they're saying. You might survey your employees. You can survey your employees in little pulse surveys, maybe once a month. You can do one once a year. But when you get feedback, the one thing I will encourage you, surveys and lots of engagement stuff, be careful that when you get the negative feedback that you act on it, or you call it out and you say, you know what, we had some comments in the survey about I don't know, our bathrooms are awful right now. I've talked to the landlord. We have an agreement. He is going to come in and revise and redo those bathrooms in the next 60 days. I'm going to ask for your patience until he's able to do that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just making stuff up there. But act on the feedback, because employees remember what they wrote down. And then when there's radio silence, they're like, they didn't even care in the first place. Right? So speak as well as listen, and receive and act on that feedback, and ensure that you have an understanding of what it is that they're asking, and they have an understanding of what your parameters are. Maybe I can't change the bathrooms right now, but you know what? On Saturday, I'm coming in, I'm going to paint them myself. Whatever. All right. Build loyalty. And this is really easy to do. Just steady leadership. You know, get rid of the bad leadership. If you've got a supervisor or manager that you know you've got a lot of feedback on that is really difficult, you either need to coach that individual up or out, right? Either coach them to be the leader that you need him to be, the supervisor you need to be, or you need to get them out of there, because they will kill you if you don't. Treat employees fairly and consistently. You know, make sure that what you're rewarding the right behavior. Tailor your style to the individual employee. Some people don't want to be recognized publicly. They love the fact that you talk to them in their one-on-one about the work that they're doing. Others want, a whole parade and ticker tape parade whenever they do something. So think about what individually is important to them. Recognize the efforts of the team and the individual, right? The sales team did an incredible job. They knocked it out of the park. We exceeded our revenue by 20% this last month. That was fantastic. And in manufacturing, Susie over here identified a problem and calibrated the machine easily without even being told, and we are running 10% more bottles through than we did before. Serve as an advocate for your employees. Make sure that you have their best interests at heart. Understand that they are human beings and that you will advocate for them whenever you possibly can. People always ask me about recognition efforts. I would say there's so many things you could do. I've had executives that give their flight upgrades to employees, right? So it doesn't cost them a dime. They have a lot of miles. Give the miles to an employee. Give someone, maybe employee of the month gets, I don't know, 50,000 miles or something. Think about tickets to local sporting events. Just, give 4 tickets, buy 4 tickets. I had worked for a company where we had season tickets for the Utah Jazz, and they would give out those 4 tickets to 4 employees every month. They didn't ever use them for the executives. They gave them to the employees. Just random treats. I had a group that I didn't do it. It was another part of the team, but they would just leave those little bite-sized candy bars. Like once every couple of months, they just walk through and just leave it with a little sticker on it saying "You're awesome," and drop it on their desk in the evening, and it was there in the morning, right? Think about those kinds of things. Your branded products, obviously, if you've got sweatshirts and hats and coolers and cups and that kind of thing, think about buying something like that twice a year, perhaps, to give out. Let somebody be a boss for the week. Select somebody to be the boss, sit in on the management meetings, make some decisions, give feedback. And so they're exposed to things they haven't typically been exposed to. Think about lunch with the C-suite or lunch with the boss. We used to do about 10 employees would meet with the CEO once a month. We just selected 10 random employees from random departments, and they had lunch with the boss. It was with the CEO, or if she wasn't available, then it was with one of the other C-suites, and they could talk about anything they wanted to. Another thing we did for wellness, but was also really powerful, was walk with the boss. So in the summertime, I think it was the first Saturday of the month or first Friday of the month or something like that. We said, be there, be at the front doors at 8 o'clock. Boss is going to be walking, and we told, and you can walk them and you can talk about anything you want. Which was really interesting because when I went to the bosses, when I went to the C-suite, and I said, okay, you guys will walk with the boss. Bill, you're this next Friday. They'd say, well, what am I supposed to do? What do I say? And they're more afraid than the employees were. And I said, you're just going to listen. Right. So I said, you could talk about the weather, you could talk about sports, you could talk about your kids at home, you could talk about your camping trip last week, whatever you want to do. But what happened is the employees drove the conversations, and they would have really good conversations. And I don't know if this is just psychological. If you don't look directly at someone, people are a lot more open. If you want to talk with your teenagers, put in the passenger seat or in the back seat. Less eye contact makes them more comfortable to talk about difficult things. I remember talking to my daughter a lot in the backseat. Anyway, and when the boss wasn't looking directly at them, they walked and they'd come back, and the bosses would always go, "That was the best thing I ever did. I had so much fun." We surprised them all with a little Jamba Juice, a little mixed drink when they got back, a fruit drink. So walk with the boss. I'd encourage you to start every meeting with your team with appreciation, thanking someone for something and asking people to thank others. Maybe it's a safety moment that you have to do. Maybe it's a customer service story that you start the meeting with. Maybe it's an example of values in action in our organization, and how people are living our values, or an innovation that somebody came up with lately. Ask people to submit those and start your meetings with them. Think about just bringing in lunch one day, maybe once a quarter. Just bring in a smorgasbord and stuff. Celebrate those personal milestones with people, their new babies, their marriages. They ran a marathon. They were voted, as their HOA president or something. I don't know. But think about, these can just be cards too that you celebrate. Advocate on their behalf. Give them tools, the resources, their career development, what kinds of things they need. Give them a flex day when they have done an incredible job. Let them have a day off. We surprised our whole company with a week between Christmas and New Year's one year, because we just had been a very, very busy year, crazy busy. Everybody was exhausted by the time the holidays rolled around. CEO says, you know what? I decided we're taking the week between Christmas and New Year's off. Bye. I don't want to see you after Friday. That was incredible. If you got remote employees, think about dropping a handwritten note in the mail. Nothing is better than an actual handwritten note. Highlight them on social media. Take their picture, put it out on your LinkedIn page, your company page, and talk about what a great job they've done. Send something to their family. Send them dinner. Send them dinner one night. Cater a dinner to their house one night. And do what I call stay interviews, which is re-recruiting people on a regular basis, which is this next one. So when you round in the organization, round with purpose. To look at fixing systems, providing resources, addressing challenges that people are having. Model the behaviors that you're expecting, and expect every one of your leaders to model those same behaviors every day. Ask questions of your staff. What are you thinking? How is this working? Is this product, you're getting any feedback on the product from our customers? Build those relationships. Remember who people are. Show support. Make sure that you let them know that they're doing a fantastic job. We're thrilled with what they're doing. And when I say re-recruit, every time you talk to somebody, ask them, are you doing good? You got everything you need? Is there anything I can give you? Anything that the company can do to help you do your job better? I would say also do stay interviews, which is you can do them at 30, 60, 90 days, 120 days. But go back and interview those people all over again and say, how are you doing? What do you think of your job? What would you do if you were me? You know, what type of feedback would you have for us as an organization? Re-recruit them, listen to them. Remember those huge differences in engagement that we saw in that one graphic? It's just asking them about their career, asking them what they're doing, asking them what they're happy with. Re-recruit regularly. And I said there were 4 principles. I'm going to say 5. Number 5 is take care of yourself. As a manager and as a leader, you've got to also focus on your own physical, emotional, intellectual, social, and spiritual balance. Sleep, eat healthy food, exercise regularly, relax, get away from the organization and have fun. Sometimes take a kind of a holistic approach to your own well-being. If you as a leader are not effective, your employees are not going to be effective. You've also got to take that breath and get away from the craziness. And a final thought here, and I think you've already heard this already, but the most powerful key to improving the performance of your direct reports and reducing the likelihood that they'll leave your team, that's engagement, is the improvement in the relationships you share with them and the trust they have in you as a leader. And share that with every one of your leaders all the way down the row. That's important. They know that they make a huge impact on their team. I'm going to stop there and open it up for questions, any kind of comments. Wild outbursts.
A lot of great information. Thank you.
There's a lot there. There's a lot there. And this is recorded, and so you can go back and listen to it again. I know that you just already put that on your calendar. You want to see it again, but you can go back and review again if you'd like to. So.
And I think if we could implement a key factor every day and get used to receiving feedback and what are we going to do with the feedback that we've just received, I think that would build a very healthy team.
Yeah. Yeah. Because your employees know that, right? Oh, Colleen's coming. She wants to have a roundtable with our team again today. What do I want to ask her? Right? Or what do I want to know from her? They're going to ask you questions. They're going to ask you and they're going to look to you for wisdom and for guidance and for leadership. But when you say, what do you ask? What do you want? What if you could ask me any question, what would it be? That tells them that you're there, you're listening, you're open, you're available. And the next time they see you in the hallway and they really do have something significant, they're going to trust that you're going to be able to talk with them.
Right.
Yeah, it's just building that trust and building that relationship. And it's not relationship where we all go, golfing together. No, that's different.
Different, totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other comments? You can throw those into the Q&A, or you can put it in the chat easily too if your audio is not working.
I don't know if anybody in the group has volunteers, but of course, SCORE is a volunteer organization, and so as we're going through this, I was thinking as a SCORE leader, what are some of these tenets that I can take and implement? So, does anybody have any volunteers or have any questions around that? Colleen, I know you're a nonprofit. Do you have employees?
We have
Only?
employees, but no volunteers.
Okay.
Volunteers are tough. Volunteers are tough. But
Mhm.
I think a lot of these tenants are magnified in the volunteer world because I don't have to be here, right?
Right.
I don't have to volunteer. I'm doing it because it touches something inside me, and I feel like I'm making an impact. I feel like I'm valued, and it's all the same tenants.
It is that extra component of why they're there. Their mission, their personal mission for why they're volunteering to mentor clients may be slightly different than SCORE's mission. I mean, we all have at heart that we want to help people, but it might be slightly different. I think that's a conversation to have with them.
Yeah, definitely. I always say this when I'm I teach compensation and stuff too. And I say, you know what? Compensation, people need to be able to live. People need to be able to feel like they're being rewarded fairly, if you feel like they're being valued correctly. But I said, if it was all about money, we'd have no teachers, we'd have no police officers, and we'd have no social workers. People work and pursue a career based on what says something to them in their heart and their gut. And so you can disengage an executive as easily as you can disengage a service worker. And you can engage an executive as quickly as you can engage a service worker as well.
Janine, you've given us many wise words to contemplate during your presentation, and we thank you for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love this kind of topic. Yeah.
So in closing, if you do not already have a SCORE mentor, you can request a SCORE mentor to help you with some of your employment engagement issues or pretty much any issue or challenge that you're having in your business. So feel free to reach out. Janine also is available if you'd like to chat with her and have her come in either as a primary mentor or a co-mentor. I think she functions more as a subject matter expert around HR than a base mentor. So yeah, if anybody has a need for a mentor, please feel free to reach out.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. And, thank you, Carol, for being the administrator behind the scenes there and helping us.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.